Very warm welcome back to the program, and thank you very much for staying with us. This is Financial Markets, and we do look at the stock markets here in Uganda, Kenya, and as well as Africa and the rest of the world. And the show is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your #1 private stock exchange. Altex can be found online at www.altex.com, and they do provide you with an exchange traded fund on the treasury bonds, and as well as accessibility to the market via your phone. You can now dial *292# to be able to enjoy the best interest rates on the current treasury bonds for the 4-year, 5-year, 7-year, name it, whichever maturity period you're looking at, they have got you covered. And even for those of you who want to sell, you can be able to get to the platform at Altex East Africa and be able to sell some of your bonds on the secondary market at the best interest rates. Markets are open at exactly 8 a.m. East African Standard Time, and they do close at 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. And of course, Altex is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority. Now, before we went into the break, we looked at the USD trading for the third day, and things looked pretty better than the day before, with MTN, Wumeme, and Stanbic being the top movers in the market. Now, let's go to elsewhere in Africa and also get to see what took place on their market. Starting off with Nairobi. Nairobi Stock Exchange in particular on the third day of trading had a slight decline in the all-share index. This was courtesy of the number of participants going down to 43 companies. Nairobi has kind of reduced in the intensity of the trades at the exchange, basically as we draw closer and closer to the festive season. Now, when you look at their all-share index, the all-share index tracks the 65 listings, both cross-listed and domestic listed companies, and the index went down by 0.75 points, which was a 0.59% decline in the value of the index. And looking at the impact of that, of course, it did have a lot of impact on the way traders actually had to move. And when you look at the closing points, we had about 126.48 points on the all-share index value, representing currently a 1-week loss of 1.03% on the all-share index. Now, this is very important because the markets in Nairobi just a few weeks ago were trading on average with about 52 companies a day that are listed and participating in the daily trades. Currently, that number has gone down to as low as 43 companies rather, on the other hand. And this is exactly why the all-share index is not doing as well. This particular kind of decline has also been rubbed off to the NSE 20 and the NSE 20, the top 20 and top 25 companies respectively that are listed on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Particularly the NSE 20 went down by 0.44%, and the NSE 25 lost about 0.78% of its value. These indexes give us the average picture of how the different listed companies performed in these particular days of trade. Now, the NSE 25 and the NSE 20, basically tracking the top 20 and 25 companies respectively, did slightly decline. It wasn't as a big decline as we saw on the all-share index, basically because the top companies kind of tried to maintain their value as the day went by. To look at the participation and the top gainers and losers, the day ended with 11 gainers and just over about 23 losers, almost double the number of gainers. Express Kenya led the gainers this time round with an appreciation of about 7.14% in price, closing the day with 3.0 Kenyan shillings per share. When you look at Express Kenya, it's been a while since we had it on the gainers list, and yesterday was quite a good one for them. Here coming with a 7.14% gain. Bamburi Cement also had a 5.02% gain, and Kabaseed Investments continued its gaining spree at a 3.51% gain on the Nairobi market. The Home Africa company, which is a developer of properties in Kenya, Tanzania and Uganda, also gained about 2.78% on their current price. On the losing side, things weren't so good for the hotel industry. TPS East Africa Serena lost about 9.16%, ending the day with 11.90 Kenyan shillings per share on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, which was the worst performance for the day. Nairobi Business Ventures also declined by 8.44%, whereas Kenya Reinsurance Corporation declined by about 8.42%, and the East African Cables declined by about 6.82% on the third day of trading. Safaricom, on the other hand, became the top mover once again on the movements list, and it moved by about 3.74 million shares. That was the volume traded on this particular single day of trading. However, the company's stock price was maintained, and KCB Group had about 1.28 million shares that were traded, and East African Cables about 816,000 shares that were recorded, and Kenya Power and Lighting Company close to 810,000 shares. Now let's look at Express Kenya here a little bit in detail, and get to see what they have in stock for us. Express Kenya Limited is a Kenya-based company that is engaged in the provision of clearing and forwarding services for both air and sea, as well as warehousing and logistical services. It operates through 5 divisions, that is the sea freight, they do have the air freight, the parking and normals, removals, as well as transport, as well as warehousing in Kenya. When you look at their stock on the Nairobi Stock Exchange, they currently hold the 59th position in terms of value. This is via their market capitalization, and this is basically the value of their shares, currently possessing about 143 million Kenyan shillings, which represents about 0.073% of the entire Nairobi Securities Exchange equities market. Looking at their price, yesterday went up by 0.2%, and rather 0.2 shillings, and this was a 7.14% to 3.0 Kenyan shillings. The volume they did trade was 5,200 shares, valued at 15,600 Kenyan shillings. A quite small value, but basically this is the common thing with the small cap companies. Usually they do have a small price shift, and it turns out as a very big percentage, and they do still have sometimes very small or few shares that are also recorded there on the company's movements. But still, nevertheless, they do provide liquidity, and volatility is quite high, unfortunately, and this is what I must warn you. When you're investing in companies such as this one, you must be ready for a hit, either in the positive way or a negative way, but their stocks are not stable because of course the different factors that do affect the stocks of the small capitalization markets. Currently, however, the size of the company has the size of the shares that are listed on this company on the Nairobi Stock Exchange are currently 47.7 million shares. These are valued at 143 million, which is their current market capitalization on the exchange. Express Kenya, much as it gained from about 7.1% from 2.8 shillings to 3.0 shillings, Kenyan shillings. There is still some worry, and this is coming from their monthly performance. When you look at their monthly, their year-to-date, and their 4 weeks performance, it's not quite good. And Express Kenya also began there with a 4.1 Kenyan shillings trading price, and has since then lost about 26.8% of that price valuation, ranking it the 51st in terms of year to date, which is not a very good position out of 65 companies. And also in terms of trading, they haven't been that active, and currently they are in the 47th position in terms of trading, that is in the volumes traded for the last 3 months, dating back from the 31st of August to the 30th of November. Express Kenya in this period has traded a total volume of just 89,200 shares, and these are valued at exactly 299,000 Kenyan shillings. It's not a pretty bad, but not as good as it can get. And that's why it's very important not to get excited overnight over a gain of a company. So this is a company that gained 7% in a single day, but when you look at the history, this hasn't been the case. And so if you rush to get in without looking at the history, you could actually hit the dead end. But still, sometimes that's how we learn. But regardless, Express Kenya, I would say, for young investors, for novices, it wouldn't be a good option for now. But for a longer term view, yes, maybe not. So it's a 50-50 for me there for Express Kenya Limited gain. Now let's look at Bamburi Cement. This is a very huge company, a cement company in Kenya, and was one of the top gainers there on the Nairobi market. The Bamburi Cement Company is a Kenyan-based manufacturer and seller of cement and its cement-related products. It also owns and manages a nature and environmental park developed by rehabilitated quarries. The company's subsidiaries include Bamburi Special Products, which is also engaged in the manufacture of concrete paving blocks and other cement products under the brand name Bamburi Blocks, and Lafarge Ecosystems Limited, which manages the company's mining reserves as well as rehabilitating its quarries. Other subsidiaries include Bamburi Cement Limited, Uganda. There's also Hima Cement Limited. There's Diani Eastern Limited, Kenya Cement Marketing, Portland Mines Limited, and Seruji Management Limited. Bamburi is a subsidiary of a French company known as Lafarge, which is a very well-known company when it comes to cement manufacturing. Now, Bamburi's stock on the Nairobi Stock Exchange currently stands at exactly 11.4 billion Kenyan shillings, which is about representing 0.579% of the 2 trillion market capitalization of the equity market in Nairobi Stock Exchange. And currently, the company is the 19th most valuable, which is very important fact here. Now, the current price of the company stock is 31.4 Kenyan shillings after having gained about 1.5 Kenyan shillings in the 3rd day tradings, which was a 5.02% gain. Now, besides this, the company traded about 2,500 shares and valued at 78,550 Kenyan shillings there. Earnings per share currently are 3.58 Kenyan shillings, and the price to earnings ratio is 8.77. Now, the shares outstanding currently stand at 363 million shares. This shows you how really well established and how much influence this company can have on the stock exchange. And the market capitalization currently standing at 11.4 billion Kenyan shillings. Now, besides the gain they had on yesterday's trading, the company's figures don't look so good in the last few months, looking at the year to date, the month-on-month performance, and even the most recent performance. The company on the exchange, let's see, from the beginning of the year, the company had about 38.0 Kenyan shillings, and currently at 31.4 Kenyan shillings, the company has shed off over 17.4% of their year-to-date performance, ranking it the 43rd in this line. Now, shareholders' worries can also be compounded by the fact that Bamburi Cement has lost 8% of its stock value from November 2nd to date, which is also quite a big loss there. But in terms of trading, they do have a very promising figure here. In the last 3 months, they are the 24th most traded on stock on the Nairobi Securities Exchange over the past 3 months, from the 31st of August to the 30th of November. Within this period, we are talking about a stock of about 1.58 million shares that are transacted, and ending with about 53.9 million Kenyan shillings in turnover. So is Bamburi a very good stock? Is it an average stock? Is it an excellent stock? I would say it's a good stock, and I would maintain that for a longer term point of view, it can be something you can consider, because generally, like you have seen, they have registered cuts in price from the 1st of January to date. They have registered cuts in price from November 2nd to date, and they are still maintaining their 24th position in terms of trading. So that's a company that can give you value in the long term, and right now could be the best time to get into such a company. Also, the industry, the cement industry, I mean, infrastructure projects in Uganda, in Kenya, in Tanzania are taking the nations by storm. So there's definitely going to be a lot of demand for their product very soon, and there has always been a lot of demand. So I would say it would be a good consideration for an investor out there on the market. And now, away from all that, let's get a summary. Remember, TPS Serena came out last, and that is in the hotel industry in terms of the losses, but that wasn't because of any superficial reason, but the fact that the company is small, like in terms of the pricing, the stock price, very slight movements in price really do have big percentages. That's why he came out at the bottom here with a 9% drop to 11.9 Kenyan shillings. But you could realize that their loss was quite meager there compared to, of course, what would have resulted maybe if it were another company. Now, in summary, we are looking at a trading session that ended with over 8.5 million shares transacted in about 913 deals on the Nairobi market. And currently, we are also seeing a turnover of about 290.8 million Kenyan shillings that were injected yesterday into the Nairobi Stock Exchange. Compared with the previous day, the improvements were registered in the deals. There was a 4% improvement in the number of deals, and the rest were declines. In turnover, we declined about 47%, and in the volumes, we had about a 28% decline on the Nairobi Stock Exchange. The market capitalization of the Nairobi Stock Exchange has also slightly contracted due to the number of participants in the trade going down, but also many companies losing. We have had more companies losing than gaining, almost double, because yesterday alone we had 11 gainers and over 23 losers. So what would you expect on the market capitalization side? So the capitalization has contracted from 2 trillion in just a space of about 1 month to exactly 1.97 trillion Kenyan shillings rather. And all these are opportunities really. You must be able to open your eyes early enough. As an investor, you must be aggressive and greedy when others are fearful, and be fearful when others are greedy. That's from a seasonal investor there called Warren Buffett. And so you can be also able to take on that attitude. Well, that's it from the Nairobi Stock Exchange. I want to fly now into the land of South Africa. We had some action-packed trading on the exchange yesterday in Johannesburg, and particularly the movement was big on the health sector in Johannesburg. And looking at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, the J203, which is the benchmark of performance for the exchange, moved in the positive direction, going up yesterday by over 1,700 points. Guys, this is crazy. I mean, in a single day, you have a stock exchange, an index moving over 1,000 times. Because remember, indexes give us the whole picture. Even if I stop here, you would probably pick on an exchange traded fund in South Africa because of this statistic, because this is a very great movement. But of course, as a trader, as a prudent investor, you must take keen caution and get to find out what happened and which companies really influenced this. You could find maybe it was just a specific cluster of companies in a specific sector, and then you go for entirely the opposite sector and you mess things up. So you must really understand. But we are talking about over 331 Johannesburg Stock Exchange listings, and these ended the day with over 169 gainers, and one of the big gain there, and just 132 losers. And this is the importance of gaining, because every time you gain on the stock price, you're looking at also the market capitalization of the exchange appreciating in the same direction. Now, Inblue Plus Properties came in as the topmost gainer at the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, leading the gainers by 19.55% and closing with a 3.18 South African Rand price. A huge group also came in as a top gainer at a 14.16, and Stefanati Stock Holdings also gained about 13.21%. Quantum Food Holdings also gained about 12.39%. Those were some of the big gainers for the day. But on the losing side, Visual International Holdings came out last with an end of day price depreciation of 33.3%. So you're seeing the food industry, properties, real estate really did great on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange compared to the arts industry as of yesterday's trading. Currently, the J203, which is the benchmark of performance in South Africa, is counting about 74,828 points on yesterday's trading. And that's all that we could get for you from South Africa. You can find more at www.smart24tv.com, or you can visit us also on our different other social media platforms, on Twitter at Smart24TV, and get to find more there. Now, I would like to conclude with the US market performances here, getting to analyze and see the days ending. Now, Powell signals 0.5% rate hike in December, citing need to moderate the pace. Could it be another central bank rate increment in the United States? We don't know. Well, there are threats everywhere by Jerome Powell, who is the central bank rate chairman there at the Federal Reserve Bank, which is the central bank of the United States. Remember, they have just had their fourth 75 basis point increment in the central bank rate just in less than 3 weeks. And right now we are talking about another 50% increase. What a movement there. Now, the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell set the table for a 50 basis point rate hike at the Fed's December policy meeting, saying in a speech on Wednesday that it makes sense to moderate the hikes as the Fed approaches its estimated peak in benchmark interest rates. Now, there has been, of course, a lot of hullabaloo when it comes to the interest hike. Of course, the central bank rate is saying, the central bank rather is saying that they want to control inflation, but at what? A very huge debate on that, and it's a top story that you should check out in the US markets there. But to give you the figures here, yesterday ending the day, S&P 500 ended with a 1.78% appreciation at exactly 4,027 US dollars closing. And the Dow Jones, that is the Dow 30, it had about 34,180 points at the end of the day after having gained about 0.97%. The Nasdaq, which tracks mainly the tech stocks like Amazon, Apple, Google, Facebook, had about 3.07% appreciation there, closing at 11,321. There you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Remember to be greedy when others are fearful, and fearful when others are greedy. My name is Anthony. You've been watching Financial Markets. Stay tuned on SMART24 TV. More is coming your way. Catch you tomorrow, same time, same place. Bye for now.